Moises slept in a hamaca. Those are the words that my mother said to me one day after church. Needless to say, it took me a bit to translate exactly what she meant. And what she meant to say was, Moses slept in a hammock. Let me introduce you to my mother. My mother is 89 years old. She lives in assisted care. She is a native of Chile, Santiago, and speaks Spanish and English fluently. She's been a social worker for 35 years. And one of her favorite hobbies is to knit hats. And as you can see in this photograph, my family and I are all wearing the hats that she has knitted. And my mother suffers from dementia. Mr. Toastmaster, Toastmasters, and yes, has there been someone in your life that you have known that has suffered from dementia? Perhaps an elderly relative or a neighbor? Or maybe you've been stuck in a long line at the grocery store, only to discover that the person in the front is an elderly woman who's paying her bill by pulling out pennies from her coin purse. Well, today I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks from my own experience working with my mother, and maybe they will help you to work with someone else who has dementia. The first tip I have to share is putting yourself in the proper mindset. Kind of like you might do before you go to a foreign country. Patience is key. I notice if I'm calm, my mother's more apt to be calm. And if I'm in a good mood, she is also more apt to be in a good mood. And this is a good thing. Now, right next door to having a good mindset is the ability to listen. And this means not arguing or debating with something that she has said, because a person with dementia no longer has the capacity to understand in the way that you would like them to. So when my mother says to me that I need to fix her eyeglasses frames because if I don't, her dentures will fall out, I nod my head and I repeat back to her what she has told me so that she at least knows that I'm listening. The next tip I'd like to share is that when you're listening, and especially when the words aren't making too much sense, listen to the feeling behind what is being said. For example, my mother has a favorite chair in the lobby, and of course everybody uses these chairs. But if anyone's sitting in that chair, my mother will go up to them and say, "My doctor said that I must sit in that chair because if I don't, I will catch pneumonia from the draft and I will die." And usually the person who's sitting in the chair will move. But this tells me that my mother will do anything to feel secure. That's the feeling behind what she's trying to say. And that helps me understand her more. And it gives me more patience in dealing with her. Another way that I communicate with her is that I use short sentences and I look at her directly in the eye, because I think if she can see my lips, she can understand me better. And if that doesn't work, I will write down a key word on a piece of paper. Now, every Saturday, she and I have the same conversation, and it goes like this. Vivian, when is lunch? Lunch is at noon, Mom. Ah? Lunch is at noon, Mom. On the moon? This is where patience comes in. And I'll say, no, Mom, at noon. And I'll write it out on a piece of paper and I'll show it to her. And then she'll say, oh, noon. Mission accomplished. And the last tip I'd like to share is that knowing a little bit about improv and having a sense of humor helps. Because often the elderly who have dementia will go out there. And sometimes it's helpful if you go out there with them. And you might end up, both of you, having a good laugh. I have a really good friend at work named Suzanne, who has a mother who also lives in assisted care. And they will dine together in the public dining hall. And one time a resident came by and said to her mother, don't I know you? Weren't you in jail? And Suzanne and her mother decided to go with it. And her mother answers, oh yeah, I remember you. You were in cell block 202, weren't you? So communicating with the elderly is a challenging thing if they have dementia. And even if I try my own tips that I've shared with you, like listening and finding the feeling behind the words and using improv and having a sense of humor and all that, there is one thing that never gets lost in the translation. And that is my mother's love.